Hi guys, welcome to Ms. Starkle's first biology video. In this video we're going to learn about the components of DNA and how to identify them and make sure we can describe how information for specific traits of an organism is carried in the DNA. The way this is going to work is there will still be your do first. Sorry if my handwriting is really bad. You will then go through a few questions with me together. And as I'm going through these questions, you are taking notes. Please take notes. And then you will do some practice on your own. That way you can be ready for your quiz when I see you next. Here is your do first. Go ahead and get started. I need you to pause the video now and resume when you are finished with your do first. At this point, you should be all ready. We're done with your do first, and now we're going to go over the answers. When the question asks you for a complementary strand, are you using DNA, RNA, or are you using T or U? Anytime we talk about complementary, we are talking about DNA. Make sure you know that. We're never going to talk about RNA. So if we're talking about DNA or complementary strands, we are using DNA, and that means we are using the bases A, T, C, and G. So we're not using U, we're only using T. Okay, let me get rid of this real quick. You should be in box 3 for most missed STAR questions. We're going to go over 4 questions that were most missed on your common assessment. Let's pick blue pen. So it says a medical test indicate that a patient has a non-functional or not properly working protein. This condition is most likely due to a change in the directions coded by the what? Anytime we're talking about directions coded, especially for proteins, we are referring to DNA. So everyone make sure you have that written in your notes. The most specific part of DNA that works for coding are going to be our bases. And specifically, it's the order. Let's fix that O, of the bases that is going to determine what protein is happening. So if the protein isn't working, then there must be something wrong with the sequence of DNA subunits. We don't really care about these inorganic molecules. Peptide bonds are not going to mess up the coding, and hydrogen bonds or hydrogen atoms are not going to affect anything having to do with protein coding. Number 2, differences in heritable genetic traits between individuals, such as eye color, are largely determined by. So everyone, traits is determined by your DNA. And specifically, it's the order of those bases. And remember, another name for bases is going to be nucleotides and nitrogenous bases. Again, nitrogenous bases. Ooh, sorry for my handwriting. Hopefully it gets better. So, knowing all of that about DNA, it doesn't matter about the type of sugar. It doesn't matter about the deoxyribose. Remember, deoxyribose is the sugar. It's just a fancy name for it. And we don't care about the sugars, we only care about those nucleotides or the bases. And we don't care about the phosphate groups. So we only care about that sequence of nucleotides in DNA. Now on to the next. Number 3, it says a student created a model of a section of DNA for a class project. His model is shown below. What statement best describes the model of his DNA? First, remember, what are the 4 bases of DNA? They are A, T, C, and G. So if we look at the top, that looks 100% correct. That looks like DNA. It's only using those 4 bases. That bottom row, there's something new. They're using the U's. And anytime you see a U, know that it is RNA. So looking at our answer choices, the first 2 say that the model is accurate or correct. Remember, accurate means correct. This model of DNA is not a model of DNA because it's also RNA, so it is not accurate. Instead, this model is inaccurate, and it's not inaccurate because it shouldn't be single-stranded. DNA is always double-stranded, or that double helix. It's inaccurate because it does not only contain DNA bases. It is also containing RNA bases. And our very last question, number 4. It says the diagram below represents a DNA molecule. All of the following are true about the DNA molecule above except. Now before I do anything, I'm just going to label my diagram. These dark circles are phosphate groups. Our sugars are going to be these hexagons, or our deoxyribose. I'm not going to spell it out all the way. Our bases are squares in the middle, or triangles, I don't know, diamonds. And the thing that zips them all up on the center, those are called our hydrogen bonds. Hopefully your notes might look a little nicer than mine. Now all of these other bonds, like where number 3 is, all of these bonds, we don't care about them. They're not hydrogen bonds, but they're also nothing we need to remember. Okay? These are the only 4 parts you have to remember. So let's read this. It says structure 1 represents a phosphate group. Structure 1, phosphate. True, so we cross it out. Number 2 represents a sugar. Also true, so let's cross that out. Structure 3 is an example of a peptide bond. 3, no idea, because we don't care about those bonds, right? And number 4, these bases contain nitrogen. Now remember, the other name for bases is nitrogenous bases, because they do contain nitrogen. So that works, so let's cross it out. So our answer then, peptide bonds. There are no things called peptide bonds in DNA structure, so that would be our except. Now the rest of this time you should spend answering, oops, let's get that pen back, these 3 multiple choice questions in box 4 for your independent practice. Make sure that in the margins you are making notes, and as you're going you are annotating the questions. The more you annotate, there we go. The more you annotate your work, the better off you are for answering the questions later to come. Good luck. We will go over the answers tomorrow in class and take for a quiz. Be prepared. Bye.